At my 8-month checkup, my mother-in-law whispered, "We don't accept this child." I froze. "Excuse me?" She smiled coldly. "You heard me." The nurse stepped out calling my name, and that's when everything shifted. My name is Danielle Harper, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a public school counselor, helping teenagers who feel invisible at home. I've always been the steady one in every room, the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who smiles when she wants to scream. I married into a well-off family. Polished on the outside, emotionally hollow on the inside. They cared more about appearances than feelings. My husband Eric is kind, but when his mother speaks, he shrinks. This pregnancy wasn't easy for me. I had 2 miscarriages before this baby. 2 times I held hope and lost it. So this baby, growing inside me at 8 months, wasn't just a baby, she was my miracle, my reason. I wasn't wealthy. I didn't come from status or a famous last name, but I had something they never expected. I had patience, and I documented everything. I believed that one day love would soften them. I was wrong. If you've ever married into a family that made you feel like an outsider in your own home, hit that subscribe button right now. I know what it's like to smile through quiet cruelty. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt unwanted in your own marriage? Click hype if you believe respect is never optional. Let's go. The morning of my 8-month checkup, my mother-in-law called and said she wanted to come. For support, she said. Something in her voice felt rehearsed. I told Eric and he shrugged. Let her come. She means well. I didn't argue. In the waiting room, the smell of antiseptic and fresh paper filled the air. Soft chairs, gentle lighting, pregnant women reading magazines. A calm place. Patricia sat beside me and immediately started talking about the baby's last name, about family traits, about bloodlines. She said, "We just want to be sure this baby really carries our family traits." She loud enough for the receptionist to glance over. "Are you implying something?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She said, with a sweet smile, "I'm implying that we value certainty." Then she casually suggested a DNA test, in public, in front of nurses, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. Eric laughed nervously. He didn't say a single word in my defense. Then came the hallway, just the 2 of us. She leaned close and whispered it, "We don't accept this child." Before I could respond, she walked back to the waiting room and loudly asked the receptionist about paternity policies. Other patients turned to look. My face burned, but I didn't cry. I didn't react, because right then, I understood something clearly. This wasn't emotion, this was strategy. She had already spoken to the family lawyer about protecting family assets. She had planned this visit. Every word was calculated. And so, I made a decision. I would be more calculated. The weeks that followed were filled with small, deliberate attacks. Patricia pressured Eric to update his will before the baby arrived. She suggested a trust that would exclude our child until verification was complete. Eric came home one evening and said, "It's just paperwork, don't overreact." I looked at him for a long moment. I said, "Okay." And I went to our bedroom and wrote everything down. At a family dinner the following week, Patricia stood up and announced to everyone at the table, "We believe in transparency." Danielle understands that. The implication was clear. She was suggesting I had something to hide. His sister Claire added, "If there's nothing to hide, why refuse a test?" I sat there surrounded by their certainty, and I said nothing. I smiled, I ate my food, but under the table, my hands were steady because I was already building something they couldn't see. Then Patricia crossed a line that shocked even me. She called my OB's office privately, questioning pregnancy timelines. She left a voicemail at the clinic saying, "We protect our name." The nurse told me about it at my next visit, looking uncomfortable and sorry. I saved that information. I added it to my file. What they didn't know was that I had been recording every hostile voicemail Patricia left on my phone. I had screenshots of texts that questioned my character. I had dates, times, and exact words written in a notebook with a plain blue cover. I had already met with my own attorney, one Patricia had never heard of, one with no loyalty to her family. I learned about emotional harassment. I learned about defamation. I learned that pressuring a pregnant woman into a DNA test without any legal basis could have serious consequences. I wasn't planning revenge. I want to be clear about that. I was planning protection for me, for my daughter, for the life we deserved. They thought my silence meant weakness. They mistook my calm for surrender. They were very wrong. Mr. Thompson was semi-retired but sharp as ever. He had handled Eric's grandfather's estate decades ago. He knew this family's history better than they remembered it. When I reached out to him, he listened to everything I had. Then he leaned back in his chair and said, "Your mother-in-law forgets I know where every skeleton in that family is buried." He confirmed that Patricia had no legal standing to demand a paternity test. He told me to stay calm. He said, "Let her push. People who overplay their hand always show their cards." Patricia grew more confident every day. She scheduled a formal family meeting at the attorney's office, framing it as inheritance planning. She believed I would walk in nervous, unprepared, and that I would finally break under the pressure of the whole family watching. Eric told me the night before, "Maybe just agree to the test so this ends." I looked at him calmly and said, "Or maybe it ends another way." The conference room smelled like leather chairs and old wood. Everyone was present. Eric, Patricia, Claire, 2 other family members I barely knew. Mr. Thompson sat quietly at the far end of the table. Patricia wasted no time. "Before any inheritance planning continues," she said firmly, "we require a DNA test." I didn't flinch. I reached into my bag and slid a folder across the table. "Before that, I think we should talk about harassment." Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. He pressed play on a small recorder. Patricia's own voice filled the room. "We don't accept this child." The silence was total. He played a second recording, her voice again, suggesting I had trapped Eric to access family money. Mr. Thompson then explained, slowly and clearly, that the behavior documented in my file could constitute emotional distress and defamation. "If this continues," he said, looking directly at Patricia, "Danielle has legal grounds for action." The color left Patricia's face. Eric stared at the folder like he'd never seen me before. I looked at Patricia and said, "You questioned my integrity for months. Now I'm questioning yours." Mr. Thompson added that any legal attempt to exclude a child from inheritance based on unproven suspicion would be challenged and would likely fail. Patricia stammered. This was a misunderstanding. I shook my head once. No, it was a strategy, and it didn't work. I stood up and said clearly so everyone in that room could hear, "This child doesn't need your acceptance, but you will respect me." I walked out of that building with my shoulders back and my hands steady. Eric caught up to me in the parking lot. He apologized. For the first time, he really saw the pattern he had been part of. I didn't yell. I just told him things needed to change. Patricia stopped contacting me directly after that day. The DNA test demand was never mentioned again. I set clear boundaries. No unsupervised visits, no financial conversations without my knowledge, and I focused on my daughter, who arrived 6 weeks later, healthy and loud and perfect. I learned something through all of this. Strength doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be angry. Strength is documented. It's prepared. It's calm in the face of cruelty. They tried to make me feel small. Instead, they revealed exactly who they were, and I walked away stronger, knowing I had protected my child before she even took her first breath. If someone has questioned your character without proof, you know how deep that cut goes. Have you faced family humiliation or false accusations? Share your story in the comments. Subscribe to stand with others who refuse to be bullied into silence. Click hype to help this story reach someone who needs it tonight. Did this story hit home? Like the video and tell me your thoughts below. Click hype to help it find others who felt this same kind of betrayal. Your support matters more than you know, and if you've ever had to protect your peace the hard way, I want to hear about it.